Two, one. Hi, everybody. This is the first session in the Emerging Topics track. Our very first speaker is none other than Michael Larsen.
Thank you very much. Again, this is interesting. I'm going to be working with the microphone in hand. This will either do one of two things. It will make me much more focused, or it will detract greatly. One of the great ways that you can really confuse an Italian is put something in his hands. Because when he can't talk with his hands anymore, his brain will self-destruct. Anyway, sorry about that. Okay, so first off, many of you might have been intrigued by the title when I said, Be Prepared. What can scouting teach testing? The answer is, I think, quite a bit. Let me fill in a little bit here and give you a little bit of background. I've been a software tester for about 17 years. I've also been a Boy Scout leader for about 17 years. I'm the father of an Eagle Scout, and I've actively held probably just about every position that you can have in the hierarchy of scouting, from a Cub Scout den leader all the way up to a district commissioner and anything in between. And because of that, I've had the benefit of close to 2 decades of watching how people learn, how people form into groups, and what they've discovered through that process. And because of that, we actually have a model that we use. Now, I can't say that the Boy Scouts invented this, but it's based off of a model that was developed in the 1960s that describes how teams develop. And I'm going to share a little bit about that with you today. And I'm also going to share a little bit about how we use that model with a very simple acronym that you can take home. And no, I'm not going to tell it to you just yet. So the first thing I want to show you is 4 pictures. And the first picture I'm going to show you is a number of arrows, and they're all pointing in various different directions. When you start a team, when you start an initiative, when you start a learning process, by the way, you don't have to be in a team for these steps to be relevant to you. Teams of 1 go through this exact same process. This first step is what we call the forming stage. That's when a group comes together and they figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. The second step is what we call the storming stage. And as you see with storming, you have some arrows want to go one way, other arrows want to go another way, usually in opposition to each other. Or if not with direct opposition, at least with friction and uncertainty. Down at the bottom, what you'll start to notice is you'll see that there's a number of arrows. They're kind of pointing in the same direction. They're at least getting a little bit of an agreement. And we call this the norming stage. Everybody can read my handwriting okay? Awesome. So the norming stage is where we kind of gather everybody together and we know where our goal ultimately is going. And then our final step is what we call the performing stage, in which most everybody is aligned in the direction, we know what we need to do, our objectives are clear, and we just go for it. Any team you're in goes through these steps. Sometimes it's very short. Sometimes the forming process may be a day. Sometimes the storming process may be very long. It might take you a long time to overcome certain difficulties until you get to where you need to go and then start performing. To really simplify this, if you're part of an agile team and you pick pairs for a day and you pick new pairs for a day, you go through this very quickly. You go from your forming to your storming to your norming to your performing in minutes, and you're up and you're running. In other initiatives, it takes a lot longer to do that. For example, if I'm a lone tester, imagine that, and I'm given the task that I need to come up with a method for learning how to do automated testing for front-facing user interface. And I've not done that before. Well, first off, my forming is going to take a little while. I'm probably going to have plenty of storming just within myself and what I know, and working with other people to try to get the idea of what it's going to take. Norming may actually take months. And it may be 5 or 6 months before I get to this point to where I, as a lone person, have finally come up to the point to where I really know what I'm doing and I'm effective. So this is something that we can all face. We also, if we are in leadership position, we also have the ability of taking advantage of knowing that this happens. We know that this is a situation we're going to face. We know that we're going to go through these steps. So do we need to change our approach to teaching or to leading or to even learning? The answer is yes. And the cool thing is, in the Scout model, they all follow the same attributes. And here's where my handy acronym comes in. You all see that? That's EDGE, or EDGE. What does it mean? First part is explain. More to the point, it's the leadership role that you take. If you are a leader of an organization that is forming and you want to present this information and you want to get it going, you're not just going to explain it. You're going to basically be telling people what they need to do and what they need to know and learn. This is not a democracy. This is a dictatorship, if you will. In case you're curious about that, if anybody's going, hey, wait, I've heard that someplace. There's a movie that we use in Boy Scout training as an example, and we play the clips for it. It's called Remember the Titans. So if anybody's ever seen Remember the Titans, guess what? That is a fantastic movie to watch to see this very process in action. If you'd like to see another fantastic movie that does exactly the same thing, check out October Sky, which is all about the Rocket Boys. And they're making their model rockets back in the 1950s after Sputnik was launched. The movie is used in Scout trainings quite frequently to explain this very process. So explain, meaning I am in front of a group of you. I am telling you what you need to know and what you need to do. That's good for a certain amount of time. If I keep doing that, though, they're never really going to get beyond this forming stage, or they're really going to resent it when we get to this next part. So I have to change tacks. I can no longer just keep explaining. I now have to move and pivot. And that's where we get to demonstrate. Now it's no longer good enough for me just to tell you what to do. I need to show you what needs to be done. And I need to get in the middle with everybody and get my hands dirty right along with you. In the Scout program, if I've got a boy who needs to learn how to tie a knot, I can't just say, okay, to tie a 2 half hitches, just do these 2 loops, here you go, have fun. They're not going to understand it. And they're going to go, Mr. Larsen, I'm sorry, I don't get this. I can't do this. And they're going to be frustrated. Okay, let's sit down. Let me demonstrate it for you. Let me show you how we tie this. You're not familiar with cucumber and gherkin syntax. Okay, let me show you some great resources so that you can learn how to utilize this well. You're getting a brand new team together and you've got a junior pair person. Okay, come here, let me demonstrate how we do the build process so that you can get a better understanding for it. You start some realization coming in. We're going, hey, we do this all the time. Yes, we do. The next step is norming. And there's another stage here. I can't keep demonstrating, because if I keep demonstrating, then those individuals aren't going to be able to learn again. So now I have to be a guide. It's time for me to guide what they're doing. I'm no longer demonstrating for them. I'm letting them take on the lion's share of what they're doing. But I'm still here to ask questions. I'm still here to show them what they might want to do. Let's go back to my young scout who's trying to say, okay, I know how to tie 2 half hitches. That's great. So do I tie 2 half hitches on the other side too? Well, no, there's probably another knot that would be better for that. A taut line hitch would be good because then you could adjust it. Oh, okay, cool. All right, so I've learned a little bit about gherkin here and I know how to write these steps. So am I good to go? Well, not quite. There's quite a bit of Ruby that you got to know if you want to actually have the fixtures work correctly. My new pair, I've done the development tools. Am I ready to go with it? Well, yes. Go ahead and work with this for a little while and try it out. If you have any issues with it or if anything happens, there might be some strange little elements. I'm here to help you work over those humps. Now you're guiding. You're letting them do most of the work. And the final one is E, which is enable. Honestly speaking, by the time you get to enable, you as the leader are doing next to nothing. You have stepped out of the way and you are letting your team member do their thing. You are letting your scout go off and say, okay, you know how to tie these knots. You can tie up a clothesline. You're fine. Just go do it, man. I trust you. You got enough to know what you need to do for being able to ride up cucumber steps. That's great. We'll talk at our next stand-up or our next retrospective. Let's see how we're doing. New team comes in. Build tools running great. Thanks. This is great. I'm glad you were able to take care of this. I want you to take this on now. Check in with me if there's any issues. But we get out of the way, plain and simple. If at any point in these stages we don't pivot as we need to, we're going to stick them in this stage. And we might even regress. Think about the fact that every morning when you do a new pairing session with a new group of people, you literally go back to square one. Even with a well-established team, if somebody gets moved on that's junior, you may be knocked down a peg or two on this continuum. And you have to adapt to that, and you have to go back to it. I can't just assume that a boy that I've taught how to tie certain knots 2 years later is going to know how to tie the knots still. So I'll have to say, let's step back to this. Let's try this again. If they're not doing daily practice on something, they may jump back. You may actually, in a really severe case, take a really high-performing team, and because of a reorganization, you may be knocked all the way back to here and have to start all over again. So if you're the team lead, remember these steps. Explain, demonstrate, guide, enable. It's worked for the Boy Scouts for nigh on 100 years. We just got to calling it this and using this acronym about 15 years ago. There's nothing special about it. It's not trademarked by the Boy Scouts that I'm aware of. I'm sure. I will send an addendum if I'm wrong about that, but I don't think that it is trademarked for that exact purpose. And if it is, I will say all credit for the acronym goes to Boy Scouts of America. But the point is, every team goes through these steps. Every leader should go through these steps. And if you do that, the odds of you spending any great amount of time in each of these areas will be greatly diminished. Thank you.
You're not done yet.
Oh, no, I know I'm not done. But I still need the mic, right.
You still need the mic.
Okay. So, questions. So should I bring the mic over or just say it and repeat it? Okay.
Yeah. So you said twice, every team goes through these steps. Does every team go through these steps, or is it a model? Are there teams that don't go through those steps?
Okay, so the question is, I am saying that every team goes through this step. Is it a model, or is it true that every team goes through these steps? I would say the answer is every team does go through these steps, but the duration of the steps may be very short. Pretty much very rarely are you going to get a team that forms and goes off and performs unless they're used to already working together. The odds of you getting 5 or 10 people, or even 3 people, that have never worked together before, grouping them together and say, okay, now go accomplish this task, and all of them going right and hitting the ground running. It's possible, but I think even there's a little bit of a variance. Well, okay, who's going to lead this? Who's going to do that? Who wants to go first? Who's going to be the first one to take care of this? The odds of going from, hey, we're together, all right, let's go perform, bam. You do go through these steps. The duration in each step is going to vary widely. And 143 put up a yellow, so he's following on.
You're the moderator, so I don't want to jump in.
No, that's okay. This nice lady with 128.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I think one important point with this model is that some teams end up stuck in storming. That's kind of a really important thing, that not all teams progress through all 4 stages.
That's a good point. Okay, so to reiterate, the point is that some teams actually get to the storming part and they stop, and they get stuck here. And that's true. And so because they get stuck here, one of the things that needs to be addressed is, again, if you are the leader in this situation, or if you're a participant in the situation, recognizing that you're in this stage, it's really helpful to say, okay, we're in the storming mode, and we're stuck in the storming mode. What can we do about it? More times than not, being able to just say, all right, let's step back. Who's going to demonstrate this? Who's going to drop the facade and say, okay, here, let me show you what my idea is. Let me show you it. And if you don't like it, toss it, okay? But let me just at least show you what I think we can do. You then can be the leader in this case. Sometimes you may have to change roles. The leader may not be able to demonstrate, but somebody else in the group may be able to. That means you as a leader may need to pivot in the point of saying, I can't demonstrate this, but you can. So can I hand this over to you for a little while and you demonstrate this? And that way you can get your group out of the stage.
Yeah, I'm actually a Boy Scout leader in Sweden, and we learned this model as well. We have, in between these stages, there are stages of like comfort zones actually. So the one big part of being a leader of a group is get the group out of the comfort zones to get to the next stage as well. So I mean, some groups they get stuck in storming mode, and well, they don't have the time to get out of it before they need to release something, you know. But if you have a team that you want to have a long time, then you will try to, you know, direct the team so you will get it in the performing stage. And actually, as another point, I got to know that, for example, flight attendants, their schedule is actually built with this model in mind, because flight attendants cannot be comfort zones, because when there like is an accident or something, they cannot be comfort zones with each other. So their schedules are actually built on always being in storming mode.
Interesting.
Okay, Matt, or are you waving off?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, then on the same thread, we still have 34.
How do you think this model works whenever, say, one person leaves a team and a new person comes in?
Okay, so the question is, how does this model work if one person leaves and another person comes in? The answer is you may not be busted all the way back down to level 1, but it is going to have an effect. And in a sense, if for example, it depends on the level of experience the person coming in has. So in Scouts, again, I'll point back to the Scout program, and when we develop boys, we have what's called the patrol method. And in the patrol method, it's very common we're going to be rotating in some new Scouts every year into these various patrols. And when you do that, that changes the dynamic. And so the boys who are used to working together now have somebody that's not part of the team, doesn't know what they need to do. What do? The answer is the whole team rallies and, in effect, works to help get that person up to this level. And so they'll trade. So many of the members of the team will have to be ready to say, we all need to explain. It's not just one person saying, I am the dictator, you're doing what I say. It's we're all going to explain, and you as the junior person, you're in a way, for a brief period, you're subservient to the rest of the team. But that's just so you can get to the point to where you understand where you're at. Now, you're going to have some disagreements with us. I'm willing to bet. If you've got any talent at all, you're going to have some disagreements. And so then we can say, well, here's what we do and why we do it. And then by doing that, that gets them to the level where they understand what's happening within the team. And sometimes a new member may bring total fresh insights to where they might be the one that is actually causing the team to change their direction. So it's not like they're all going toward one absolute point and that person has to fall in line. You may get a brand new kid in who has a totally different interest, and the guys go, hey, I never thought of that before. And suddenly their whole performance is changed. They're inching towards another direction now because that new kid came in and reinvigorated the group.
New thread, 114.
Yeah, actually it ends up being related. When a group is actually kind of maybe norming and then you come in as the leader, do you have any thoughts about that?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. If you've got a group that's norming and you are now brought in as a leader, you can absolutely, if you're the leader in the position for a group that's already in this state, you can totally be knocked right back to there. And so you, as the leader coming in, need to demonstrate why you are the best candidate for leading that group. In a sense, you have to be the one to step up and say, I'm going to get my hands dirty. Let's go. And you may take on responsibilities that go, well, I'm the leader of the group. I don't have to do that. If you do, it's a guarantee you're going to bust this group back to this level, and they're going to stick there for quite some time, if not permanently. So by saying, all right, let me demonstrate why I'm here as the leader, what my abilities are. I'm not just going to tell you why. I'm going to show you what I can do, and I'm going to show you that I can handle this. And then that will help build the trust so that you can then step a little bit back and start guiding where you want that team to go. And they'll trust you enough to let you be a guide. And then by doing that and letting that grow and letting that develop, then you will be able to get to this stage to where the whole team performs, and they'll appreciate, hey, you're the one that's helping us perform on this. We're with you. Let's rock this.
Okay, we've got about a minute and a half. Okay. So, would you agree, say trauma nurse, right? That's a role that is more well-defined and accepted than software tester. The training, you know what training they've been through.
Sure.
So if you're in a hospital and you say, Sally is on maternity leave, we need a temp trauma nurse, that person is going to be able to, the team is already performing, to integrate better than we need to hire a tester temp because we're kind of like a box of chocolates, right?
Right.
And in a very real way, in terms of real clinical stuff, that trauma nurse is going to help reduce risk by being part of, it's kind of a mixed bag with a software tester because you probably want the different outside perspective. But they're going to pull your team down, right? So what do you think about that?
I think, okay, so to repeat this, is this context driven? Yes, the answer is. If, for example, you have a role, and Matt's used the example of a trauma nurse in a trauma center, in a way, yes, those teams are going to be molding very quickly because of external stimulus. Somebody comes in with a gunshot wound, the team's got to respond very quickly. Now, the benefit is the team's already gone through most of these steps in general. Now, in specific instances, this whole thing's going to be repeated. And that's important to remember. But if you are well-tuned, and you are well-trained, and you've done all of these steps necessary previously, then this model is hyper-accelerated. I mean, you go from forming to performing in a light switch, basically. Did I answer your question? Okay.
I just have one exception to that. That's if your trauma nurse is coming from the same area, but if she's coming from a different hospital with different procedures, she can be very disruptive and very back to
Yes.
I was totally
So-
talking outside of my experience.
Yeah, so to finalize that, yes, if the trauma nurse is not part of the team, but she's coming from a totally different area, could she be disruptive to the team? The answer is absolutely. So note, I'm not trying to say that this is going to solve every problem you have in management. This is not going to be the be-all and end-all model. But I am saying that if you have been and you have participated in working with young, squirrely kids, it's amazing how well this model works. And if this works on young, squirrely kids, imagine how much better this can work with young, squirrely software testers, or even old, squirrely software testers.
Thank you. With that, yay.
Thank you, everyone.